and this is the Shiloh Institute of the Real Spiel. And for those who don't know, I'm Canadian, and my problem is I have this ugly American trying to be my boyfriend. I've got an ugly American trying to be my boyfriend, and his name is Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump is trying to be the ugly American boyfriend to us Canadians. He wants us to be the 51st state. He wants us to be an extension of his great republic of the United States of America. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Breakfast with Dell. I got to show you. I got to show you the breakfast. Breakfast is fantastic, baby. The breakfast is fantastic. Um, we used to do the live drives, but work schedules changed. So now it's Breakfast with Dell. And I have a situation where I'm trying to figure out if it's okay to be courted by my new ugly American boyfriend. No homo. Listen, Donald J. Trump has upset 40 million potential suitors north of the border. He promised that he was going to drop a 25% tariff on Canada. He didn't do it. Apparently, his shoeshine boy, Justin Trudeau, convinced him otherwise, saying that we had 10,000 troops that we are sending to the border to reinforce the border, a plan we already had, actually. And then he backed away. But then he decided, you know what? I'm gonna put a tariff on all the steel, all the aluminum, all the steel, no exceptions. All right? Basically boosting the cost of automotives. Threw that up in the air a little bit, but $300 a car, but $1 billion cost, but mainly the cost of housing. Now, Canadians all over the place have started to demonstrate that we are Canadian, we are sovereign, we're not buying any more Kentucky bourbon, stop buying American booze, teach you Americans. And we decided we're not going to go across the border, we're not going to go to Buffalo and shop, we're not going to go to Michigan and shop, we're not going to go crossing all those border towns all across Canada and shop, except some of us who have bigger feet, they can't find that stuff in Canada, we got to go anyway to buy shoes. But most of us have decided we're going to hanker down and we're not going over to America. We're going to cancel our vacations. Not going to Florida. Not doing any of that stuff. I'm going to stay right here in the cold. And then I started to think about it. And I realized there's an analogy. The analogy is, and girls, you guys help me with this. You ever had a boyfriend, and then another guy was interested in you, but he wasn't as good looking as your boyfriend. But he told you, listen, I want you to leave this guy. I want you to come on over here with me, and I'm going to show you all the things I'm going to do for you. You're like, I don't need nothing from you. Me and my boyfriend have been seeing each other since 1867. We're a couple. And he says, you know what? I really think you should think about it because I can do a lot for you. And he's so, he's all arrogant and he wants to offer this and offer that and thinks that you need him. Then you start to think about it. And he starts to show you all the stuff that he could potentially offer you. Now, myself, when I think about it, I'm thinking like, you know what? I don't want nothing to do with this doggone Donald Trump. His racial overtones, his xenophobia, his arrogance, his incompetence, and the list goes on when you talk about Donald, right? However, when he offered me citizenship, I started to think about it. I start to say to myself, well, let's look at this thing empirically and objectively now. Let's not be hasty. Let's hear him out. Right? Let's hear what he's got to say. And I said to myself, wait a minute now. Well, you don't want to go down to America, They've had slavery in America. You don't want that as a Canadian. I'm thinking, oh, that's true. I looked into it. I was like, they had slavery right here in Canada too. Well, you don't want to go down to America. They're bigoted individuals. So that's very true. But then I looked over at those loyalists there in Nova Scotia and how they fought for Canada, and they promised them land. And they made true to their promise. They gave them the worst unfarmable land that you could possibly receive. And they came back. That was their kick in the head. And I thought of the Japanese who were over here, how Canada put them in internment camps. And I was like, that's very interesting. And the list kind of goes on. I thought about the Caribbean immigrants who came here, of which my mother was one of them. And when we came over here, we went to Montreal, boy. We went to great old Montreal. Man, that's the first time I ever heard the N-word. I was about 4 years old. I heard the N-word like I thought that was my new name in Canada. I said, oh, wow. I said, oh, we had bigotry here too. Then I realized, I was coming up and I was this great basketball player and going through the motions of trying to get a scholarship so I can go on to university, because my family was a minority family living in government housing, but me as a stand-up athlete, student athlete, I said, okay, Canada, I'm ready for my basketball scholarship. They didn't give any basketball scholarships in Canada. My ugly American boyfriend did, though. See, I got a degree from Fairleigh Dickinson University, an American school, and honestly, I could have probably gotten a degree from, I was being recruited by everybody, Connecticut, Syracuse, I was being recruited by North Carolina State, Alabama. I had about 100 different offers for my ugly American boyfriend. You know how many Canadian schools were interested in helping me get an education and playing basketball with me? Over the 100 American schools. How many Canadian schools? Guess. Zero. None. Zero. If I stayed in Canada, I would never have gone to university. Never. Wouldn't have gone to university. So I thought to myself, oh, wow, okay. Then when I came back, because I had the opportunity to play in the NBA for a little while, but I'll just leave it as I wasn't good enough. The devil is a liar, I was. But I came back here. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take this American degree and I'm going to go out here and get into the working force. People were like, Fairleigh what? Fairleigh, where's that school from? I got a business degree. Oh, do you really, though? They didn't really honor my degree much up here. I had to start like way at the bottom. I had to prove myself. I was like, geez. I was the only, at the time, I was probably one of two black men who was working in the financial district in the early 90s. I was like, this boyfriend I have up here is really not doing a lot for me. Not really doing a lot for me. Then, in the course of actually working in Canada, I realized that there was more opportunity for an individual of my melanated persuasion in many American states. Florida, Georgia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, I guess that would be, New York. There's much more opportunity for me in America. You mean that evil country, that ugly boyfriend was actually going to have more opportunity for you than free old Canada? Yeah, way more opportunity. Well, what? Okay, well, it doesn't matter. You pulled yourself up by the bootstraps and you made yourself a success in Canada, didn't you? Yeah, I did okay. I got a police force job, a little government job, figured out my life, even bought a house, bought a couple of them. But then I realized the prices that I paid here for a property, I could have bought 5 or 6 in Houston or Austin or Dallas or Georgia, even at the time, Florida. You telling me I'm paying more for dirt up here? To cold dirt, cold, hard dirt, cold, hard, expensive dirt. I'm paying more up here. My ugly American boyfriend would have had me maybe living in a warmer climate. Are you serious? I could have been doing backstrokes in the Gulf of Mexico. Oops, the Gulf of America. My ugly American boyfriend. Well, you know what? At least I won in this particular category. We have free health care in Canada. Absolutely. I know, isn't it amazing? Obama had to come give y'all health care. Before then, I don't know what you guys were doing when you went to the doctor. But this is the crazy part. The other day, I was trying to get access to my free health care because my meniscus, that's a little piece of cartilage between the bones of your knees. My meniscus decided to go left and right. They divorced themselves and went in the opposite directions. One pushing its way into the joint, the other doing, I don't know what the heck it was doing. Pain like crazy, to the point that the doctor could see the floating pieces of meniscus. Every time he bent my knee, push its way, he said, oh boy, that must be very painful. I said, it's extremely painful. Boyfriend, I need a free surgery. He said, that's no problem. We can figure that out for you. We're gonna have to do an MRI. I said, thank gosh, doctor, it's January. When can I get an MRI so I can get this surgery? You can get that MRI in April. April. You mean I've got to be in pain till the month of April for you to have a surgery on something you can see now in order for me to not be crippled? I said, absolutely. That's the good old Canadian way. That's just not my story. You know, another individual, might be a family member, might not be, had a brain tumor. They wouldn't do anything about it in Canada. Couldn't get to it. He had to go all the way to California to get a procedure that took him 1 day, and then come all the way back here to save his life. This free health care ain't worth a damn if you don't get it when you need it. If I need a Band-Aid and I'm bleeding, they say, yeah, oh, we got free Band-Aid. You just got to wait 6 months. I got to bleed for 6 months. You might start reevaluating your ugly American boyfriend. Because you're telling me that this little passport, this little Canadian passport that I got, you know, I still got to go to the checkpoints. I still got to be, you know, you got a criminal record. I got to do all that stuff just to go hang out in Miami, just to go hang out with my friends in LA, just to go do all that. And you're saying to me that I get job opportunity, I get better military protection, I get cheaper housing, I get greater access to the largest economy in the world as an individual who is already a minority in his country, and I get to utilize my skill sets, my master's degree, and potentially triple my earning potential if I just date the ugly boyfriend. And to be honest with you, when I start thinking about it, my current boyfriend ain't that good anyway. What have you done for me lately? Ain't no romance without the finance. You've got to have a job for me if you want to be with me, baby. I think when a Canadian minority who is not of the South Asian persuasion, and I'll specifically identify why that is. This is a fantastic breakfast. This is arugula with egg whites on it. I'm only doing egg whites with a piece of avocado. And what I got over here, a little cucumber with it, just to freshen the palate. But when you think about it, as a minority who is not of the South Asian persuasion, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but as a person identifying as African ancestry, Canada is no greater advantage to me at all than America. There's no greater advantage here. There's no great advantage to be Canadian, none whatsoever. I joined the Canadian military, no great advantage. I'm a police officer in background, no great advantage. Although some forces in America, the pay is atrocious, it's terrible, but I wouldn't have worked for those forces. And I'm actually in a much better position holding a blue piece of identification in my hand from a colonizer. If I got to pick a colonizer, I'm actually going to pick the colonizer who's doing the best for me. Do I wish to be identified as an American? I do not, because I'm awoke enough to recognize that Africans are not Americans, Africans are chattel, and that to you, and to call ourselves the property of America is foolish. It's a stupid thing to do, right? It's a stupid thing to do. It's and what you would call unpatriotic. It's a stupid thing to do, right? And so, but I want to talk to you about Canadians who think that what I just said to America is such an insult. It's not really an insult, it's just the truth. I want to show you something. I have this document here, and the document it's my Canadian citizenship, and it's how ridiculous it is. I had to prove I was a Canadian citizen to get a passport reissued to me, right? Because my passport had been expired. Let's call it that for now. And I had to get it reissued. And they said, well, you have to prove that you're a Canadian citizen. I'm like, my passport is in my hand. My expired passport is here. It's in my hand. And you're telling me it's no longer proof that I am a citizen of your colonized country. No. What do I need? You need to show us your citizenship card. Well, I got that when I was 8 years old. It's destroyed. It was terribly laminated. It's gone. It's in 5 pieces. You're going to use, I can give you the little 5 pieces. No, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to apply for a new one. What do I use as my identification? Well, don't use the passport that's expired because you can't use that anymore. So I had to go a bunch of rigmarole. I had to do all this and figure out, and I got one. Eventually, it took me a year to prove I am a citizen of a country I've been living in since I've been 3 years old. Okay, so let's let's talk about that. And this is my oath of citizenship, right? For you Americans down there who think that that America's bad, right? Think that America's bad. And I tell every American, African American, you're not a citizen of that country. You're chattel. You're a chattel that was released. Okay, so you can't be a citizen of a country that held you as a hostage, and then the person who kept you hostage says, "Oh, now you're a citizen. Congratulations." Right? Because the reason this born in America citizenship that Donald Trump is now taken away from you, he's taken away from you because he says that was only granted to slaves who were not citizens because they were chattel. But we had to change the Constitution to give you citizenship Even though you weren't citizens, you were property. And we also allowed you to call your children citizens. So we've allowed you to be citizens, right? You're naturalized citizens. Actually, not naturalized. You're transformed citizens because you've been transformed from property into people. And now we gave you citizenship. That's horrific, right? That sounds terrible. Listen to this. That's nothing. Listen to this, right? So this is what I have to say to be a citizen of Canada. Listen to this. You're going to love this. Americans they're going to be tickled at this. Listen. I swear or affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors, and I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada, including the Constitution, which recognizes and affirms the Aboriginal and treaty rights of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and fulfill all my duties as a Canadian citizen. In order to do that, I have to swear allegiance to King Charles, his heirs, and his successors. I have to agree to be the servant, the subordinate, the vassal of a white man in England in order to be a citizen of this old rock over here. The devil is a liar, and so is his ugly mama. Luckily, I didn't have to say this. They just sent this doggone thing by email, because the hell I was saying it. And later on, when this goes viral, and somebody wants to make me a senator of Canada, I'm screwed. Because at the end of the day, I'm not swearing allegiance to no man who is not named Yeshua HaMashiach. I'm not swearing allegiance to his heirs, his successors. I am not putting myself, this is the second part of that, I'm not putting myself as a secondary citizen under the Aboriginal or Métis. Métis people are people who are part French, part Aboriginal. I'm not putting myself under them neither, right? Because I'm a full-grown African, right? I know a lot of people are like, no, you're one of the Aboriginal people. You're an indigenous person of Canada. Let's leave that on the table for this. Some people are. I know I'm not. I know my ethnicity. I'm an Igbo man from Nigeria. That they have apprehended and brought to the island of Trinidad and Tobago. That's who I am, right? So I have no issue with individuals who have melanated complexion who identify themselves as Aboriginal people, but I know my backside will not put myself as a secondary citizen to anybody, and will not become a vassal of King Charles and his children. That's not happening to me, so that I can hold a colonizer's document in my hand. That's a boyfriend I don't want. So, I mean, when we listen from the ears of minorities, especially African minorities, Donald Trump is making me an offer. He's making me an offer that I cannot refuse. Don't put a petition in my hand, baby, because I will betray you. If you're Canada, I will. The same British colonizer who had slaves, who then said, we are going to get rid of slavery in Great Britain. But what y'all can do, go down there to America, to those uncivilized areas there, start your own colony, and you can do slavery over there. But you can't do it over here. They said, that's a fantastic idea. And a few of them, they weren't fleeing the king, the queen. They weren't fleeing the Anglican Church of England. They were trying to figure out a way how to keep slavery alive somewhere else so that I could continue to be chattel. That is the entire American way. Malcolm said it very properly. He said, we didn't arrive in Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. He said it very perfectly. And one brother said, I might be a descendant of the real Hebrews. I believe that's a very strong possibility as well. Very strong possibility. Very strong possibility, right? I'm a melanated man. They were melanated people. Okay? Very strong possibility, my brother. But I know I'm not a second-class citizen to any North American invention or experiment. Remember it's called? It's called the American experiment. I am not part of the individuals of that experiment who were considered to be people who were to be advantageous of the experiment. I was a mule. I was slated for cargo carrier in that particular experiment. However, some people say you need to get over the past and you need to stop talking about slavery. I just showed you a document from 2025 that says, in order to be a citizen of this country, I'm a vassal of King Charles. All right? That's not just for you. That's for every Canadian. That's just not for black Canadians. That's for all of us. Really, though? Really? It's for all of us? 1% of the corporate structure of Canada, 1% are black males. 1%. All right? What is the GDP of the black community in Canada? This supposed context of all of the citizenry under his grace, his majesty, King Charles. It is not an equal portioning of wealth. It's not an equal portioning of land. It is not an equal portioning of rights. It is not an equal portioning of access. Let's not get confused with that situation. Now, move on to our South Asian friends. The South Asian community is a gleaming example of a community that has been smart, intelligent about how they've appropriated Canada. The South Asian community is the second largest, speaking of India, not Pakistan, and let's make sure you understand there is a great difference, but the Indian community, I don't know the statistics on the Pakistani community, but I know for a fact the Indian community in Canada is the largest population of Indians outside of the subcontinent of India. That community the doors of Canada were open to it, and they took fantastic advantage. When they came here, they were not focused on the accumulation of merchandise. They weren't trying to put chains on and put rims on their car. They weren't trying to put gold in their teeth. They were trying to live in a community together, live together in family groups, in communal groups, save their money, buy property. They were business initiatives. They got into the trucking industry. They got into the real estate industry. They got into the financial industry. They got into politics. They started moving their individual younger members of the family into their own individual communal homes. They lived in a position where they could vote together. They could put the same city councilor in office, their own. They could put the same school trustee in office, their own. They could make sure that the educational systems and the local police departments had their people in it. They had their own grocery stores. They did business with themselves. Okay? And they built a community in the city of a place called Brampton. 59% of that fastest growing city in Canada, or no, let's say Ontario, but it's Canada. It's the Indian community. Indian community is a low crime community. The Indian community is a community that has melted very well into Canada, whether they be Sikhs or Punjabi or otherwise. The Indian community has grown to you have Indian billionaires now in Canada, and they've done a fantastic job as immigrants, late immigrants who have climbed the social, political stratosphere of Canada to the point that they have said to anybody who's a minority, look at us, we are the template, this is how you do it, and you can't take anything away from those people. But right now, do you know what Canadians are saying? They're saying that Justin Trudeau gave the country to Indians. They're saying that there's too many Indians in Canada. They're saying that there's Indians here who have no documents. They came here for schooling and they have no documents. They need to be sent home. Does it sound familiar? Okay. You have a community that's creating jobs, creating industry. You have a community that's going to school. You have a community that's not committing a lot of crimes here, right? And let me tell you, if you ask those guys, if you ask that community on whole, do you wish to be part of a romantic transfer to your ugly American suitor and have that ugly man become your boyfriend? I would think most Indians would tell you no. They have assimilated into Canada. They have sat down and said, you know what? We like it here. We'll take it. And so my words are not across the board for every minority. I understand that. But I'll tell you right now, there's their boyfriend, the Canadian boyfriend, he don't like the Indians. He don't like them. Although I'm pretty sure the next mayor of Brampton will be an Indian, Patrick Brown. This is your last go around, big fella. I'm pretty sure in my lifetime, a prime minister will be Indian. I'm pretty sure the next dead 10 years, a premier, that's a governor up here, in Ontario at least, will be Indian. I'm pretty sure of it. They probably don't want that ugly, the ugly American boyfriend. But a lot of us do. A lot of us do. A lot of us do. And let me tell you something. I would not have voted for Donald Trump. Despite my, I would say, conservative leanings, I still would have probably voted Democrat. But it hurt me to do it because there's a lot of nonsense going on the liberal side of things. But I just know what I'm signing up for in the Republican Party of America. I know what it means to be a white Christian nationalist in America. As a Christian man, a white Christian nationalist is not my friend. We can't sing Kumbaya together, and most of us know why. Some of them think, why would he say that about us? No, you doggone well know why. All right? Could I go to Jamal Bryant's church? Heck to the no. Could I go to these gay churches in Atlanta and just clap and have a great old time? Heck to the no. Can't do that either. Sorry. But at the end of the day, I know that the agenda of the Democratic Party, in theory, not always in practicality, but in theory, would speak more to situations that would benefit me. And I always say this to most people. I say this to everybody. Politics is not about what it does for everybody. Politics is what that guy's going to do for you. It's just that's what politics is, right? And like I said, to the South Asian community in Canada, Canada's fantastic for them. But to an African living in Canada, Canada has done nothing great for me, right? And you can call me ungrateful if you want to. My father was the head of national security in Trinidad and Tobago. I did not want to come here. I did not ask to come here. My mother made the Made a very bad calculation as a young student, as a young teenager, with a young child, dragging me out of my so-called adopted home of Trinidad and Tobago, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm sure I would have done better there, 100%. I might have been a fast bowler instead of a basketball player. But, with the political affiliations of my father, I would have done much better in America, in Trinidad and Tobago. And I would have ultimately, definitely still got a scholarship. I still would have traveled the world. I still would have done all these things, but I wouldn't have been stuck under the hegemonic heel of a colonizing expression here. I wouldn't have experienced that. I would have gone to private schools. I would have got a great university education. I would have had the same information and more if I stayed in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And many people don't see that. They see America as this place you want to come and you want to work. You want to, oh man, but you would have been, you wouldn't have had the house you lived in. I don't have the house I lived in now. Ex-wife got that. I don't have that stuff now. But I would have had a quality of life, I think, that would have been more dignified. In Trinidad, we have private hospitals. We have public hospitals, and we have private hospitals. I don't believe that the colonizers' countries are better than the indigenous places that many black people come from. And I believe that the brain drain of Africa, the brain drain of the Caribbean, is one of the reasons that these places stay underdeveloped, as well as corruption, but there's corruption in the West too. But when it comes down to it, if you have to pick a colonizer, pick the best one for you. Period. Pick the best one for you. And the best one for us would have been Donald J. Trump. Honestly, the best offer on the table right now, the best offer on the table is Donald J. Trump. Africa, South Africa specifically, chose I'm not going to call Putin or Russia colonizer because they haven't proven they've colonized anybody, but they chose who they wanted to affiliate themselves with, right? Africa is filling himself with Russia and China, right? Because they should, because they get better offers. They get a better offer than they get from that ugly American who came and used to throw money at them, overthrow their government, send the CIA to assassinate people, destabilize the place so that they could steal the minerals. France did the same thing. Belgium did the same thing. But Russia and China, they didn't do that. When China makes deals, they come in, they build infrastructure, they help with the roads, they help making sure the place is stable, and they take what they want to take and then go on their way too. But it's a better arrangement. Russia came in and said, no, we're going to teach you guys how to defend yourselves. We're going to teach you guys how to structure. We're going to give you guns. We're going to give you weapons. We're going to make sure that nobody can come in there and bully you. There's nothing wrong with that. Let me check out the comments before I let you guys go. Oh boy, I got a few people talking. Let me see. In the know is fleeing. Who had slaves? Canada had slaves. You better refuse it. And it's a trap and a snare. I wouldn't refuse it. The same. I'm a trap right here. Breton, you might be descendant of Hebrews. Are you on welfare? Your mama's on welfare, Patty. Are you on welfare? You see where I live, girl? Your mama's on welfare. I think people in Australia are in the same conundrum. Your content is great. Thank you, brother. Tyler Perry's going to get mad at you. Perspective is useful. Stay healthy. Share and grant. The old British educational system is a libertarian sensibility is the best, which I could have been schooled in Jamaica all the same time. Absolutely. I came up here. When I came to Canada, I was 3 years old. And by the time I was in grade 1, 5 years old, they wanted to put me into the third grade. The third grade. My English was my reading capacity. I was reading law books at 4 years old. So my capacity for communication was well beyond a kindergarten kid. But I remember when I first got there, I have a great memory. I could remember I remember the trauma. So I remember coming here at 3 years old. I remember arriving in the airport in Montreal. But at 5 years old, I remember my teacher. I was the only black kid in that particular kindergarten class, And she put me in the secondary class, the class that didn't read that very well. And when she asked me for the very first time to read, I read the whole thing like crazy. Then the next day she said, "Oh my gosh." And she put me in the advanced class. And I remember this little white kid was like, "You're not supposed to be in this section. You're in the other section." And I looked at him. I didn't say a word to him. I just sat down and he's trying to push me. And I was a big old kid anyway. He was like, "Move, you're supposed to be in the other class." And she says, "Johnny, Wendell is supposed to be in this class. Wendell, can you read for us?" Boy, Johnny couldn't explain them words that I was reading for Johnny. And after that day, she had another conversation. She said, his reading comprehension is out of this world. And they said, "Yeah, let's put him in grade 3. Grade 3. I would have been 5 years old in grade 3, where you're supposed to be 8. And my mother said, "No, I want him to be advanced. I don't want him to be, I don't want you to put him up a grade. I want him to be advanced at his level." And so she left me. She left me in kindergarten, and I continued to excel. So, that British educational system that we talked about. My grandmother taught me how to read, and I was reading it too. Right? I could talk, I could read, and that's what we had. So, again, and Obama said this years ago too. He said that the Asian countries are out. They're doing things in elementary school that in America they're doing in university. That's why all your engineers, all your IT programmers, all those programmers are in India, right? And India should be one of the fastest growing economies in the world. They're going to figure it out. But as far as what's happening here in North America is a free for all right now. It's a free for all, and nobody should have allegiances to passports, to nations, just like the multinational corporations have no allegiance to land or soil. Their sovereignty is to dollars. Our allegiance should be to opportunity. And whoever allows our community to thrive, that's where, as a community, we all should go to thrive. And we should learn something from the South Asian community that came, sat together, built together, and thrived. And if you don't learn from people who are doing well, you're a dummy. And if you don't take the best deal on the table and decide that for some type of weird allegiance to something that has nothing to do with you, that you are just going to stay at a lower level, you're a dummy. Okay? You're a big old dummy. So our allegiance is to God, brother. But our allegiance should be to opportunity when it comes to living under the sun. And these countries don't represent God. America is not a godly country. Canada is not a godly country either. These countries have no representation of what Christian culture is like. Capitalism, and that capitalism is not biblical. It's not a biblical, and capitalism, those things don't go together. So we can't utilize this type of new age mentality when it comes to these capitalistic societies that have oppressed Aboriginal people all over the world. They've built their wealth on the backs of other people. They've crushed civilizations to be able to build their wealth. They're still doing it. He's still annexing. He wants to annex another country. Trump wants to annex another country for America's benefit. That is eating your own. When the colonizer is saying, "I want to colonize another colonizer," that is eating your own flesh. Okay, so I have no true allegiance to these people, and to pledge an allegiance to a flag that had never had allegiance to you, you're a dummy. To pledge allegiance to a nation that's telling you in its very code oath of the nation that you have to become a vassal to the king, you have to become a servant to his successors and his heirs. Why would anybody pledge to that? You're a fool to do that, right? This is not that time. This is not that time. And you have so many people that have been, they say, "Oh, I'm an atheist. I don't worship any other god." And but you pledge allegiance to a dictator. You pledge allegiance to a man. No, I have one person that I serve. Yeshua HaMashiach. Yahweh is who I serve. I don't serve any man. And if I have an opportunity to walk across the street for 10 cents an hour more, why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you want to cause your family to live better and to live easier? Why would you want your burden to be heavier? Based on what would you do that? If you were playing on a team, then you can look at how the NBA is right now, but if you're playing on a team in college, guys transferred because they weren't getting enough playing time. I'm leaving this school. I'm out of here. I'm going to go play for this school. I'm going to get more playing time. You see how the NBA is. Luka Doncic, one of the greatest players probably they've ever seen. Dallas said, you know what? Nope, we don't want you anymore. And they traded him. They got rid of him. So please understand that the world will shuffle you like a deck of cards. Don't sit here and have fake allegiances. Love your wife, love your children, love the Lord and your Savior, but make moves, baby. Make moves. No flag. You were not born carrying a flag. Don't get it twisted. Make moves. These Hebrews gave us scripture and the way. Christianity is a religion and not a very good one. Well, we can argue that one. The colonizer gave us Christianity. I don't know what colonizer you mean. Christianity is a Afro-Semitic religion given to us by Hebrews. Don't defeat your own argument. Christianity is a Hebrew religion. The person of Yeshua HaMashiach is a Hebrew. He gave us his way. So how did the colonizer give us something that a Hebrew gave to him? Don't get confused. All right, this is Del K. Brereton, and this is The Real Spiel. And I'm going to have to take the offer from my ugly American boyfriend. 51st state! Sign me up. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.